Hello everyone, my name is Ripchip, and this is going to be a marathon submission video for Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. For anyone watching for non-marathon reasons, this is essentially going to be a no-reset run with real-time commentary. And the category we're going to be running is Dark War Any %. Dark War is the original full retail release of the game from 1995. We're going to play as Lorelei because she's the fastest character, and we're also going to play on the easy difficulty. So there's going to be a lot to explain right off the bat, so let's go ahead and get right into this. Alright, so Rise of the Triad is a very unique first-person shooter. It runs on a heavily modified version of the Wolfenstein 3D engine, which is why everything kind of looks flat, but aside from the looks, this is a very fast-paced and very fun, and also very difficult game. We're going to be using two different types of weapons throughout the run. One of them is bullet weapons. The bullet weapons have infinite ammo. And then there's also rocket weapons, which we can only hold one at a time. So it gives the game kind of a very arcade-like feel. Alright, that was very close. There's also power-ups, which we just picked up Mercury mode. This power-up allows us to fly, which is great for getting over all these enemies and hazards, but also gives us easy access to this, which is the MP40. Which is the fully automatic bullet weapon in the game, and this is more or less going to be our workhorse weapon for a majority of the run. We also picked up bulletproof armor, which is super helpful because the majority of the enemies in this game are hit scan enemies, and bulletproof armor prevents you from taking damage from any of their attacks, and also prevents you from slowing down from any of their attacks. So it's very convenient that it's right there. And with power-ups and armor throughout the game, you basically want to pick them up if they're convenient, because they just make getting to the levels easier and faster overall, but we don't want to go too out of our way for them. So a key thing about this game also is knowing enemy types and how to deal with them. There's quite a few of them, but this level introduces those guys in black, which are the Over Patrol. These are kind of one of the most annoying enemies in the game. And the way they work is that they throw nets at you, and if you get caught in a net, you have to break free, because otherwise you can't move or fight back. And the only way to break free is to either have a knife or to wiggle free, which takes a few seconds. As convenient as the knife is, you can only use the knife that you pick up on the map. And in the DOS version of the game, there's a glitch that let you pick up one knife and have it through the entire game, but that got fixed in this version, so to be very cautious about the Over Patrols because of that. Alright, so this level, this hallway can be very dangerous, especially without a knife, but made it pretty clean. And the other enemy types that we haven't really talked about yet are the low guards, which are the ones in gray. They are relatively non-threatening. They're very weak. The enemies in trench coats are the lightning guards. They can steal your armor and weapons if you get too close. And then there's the high guards, which are the enemies with the machine guns. They are also kind of dangerous because they can do a lot of damage to you. Also, I'm a dog, by the way. That's another power-up we just picked up. Dog mode is super helpful, not only because you don't take any damage when you're in dog mode, but also you can jump, which is great for getting over different obstacles, hazards, and enemies. And there's going to be some very helpful use for that that's even more significant later on in the game. But again, that power-up is super convenient, so it's not out of the way to get, and just makes the level faster and easier. This run is as much a speedrun as much as it is a quest for survival, so we want to be able to get through the game fast and also not die, if we can avoid it. So 2-key return, as the name implies, requires you get 2 keys to get to the exit. Do a little skip here by using the bounce pad to get to that key. And this level is a great level to teach people about backup strats, because you will have to know quite a few of them on this map, and really any map. And a key thing about that is knowing where like extra health and ammo is if you need it, because you obviously don't want to go into a position where something really dangerous can happen and not have enough health or ammo for it. So that little push wall right there is one of those backup areas. I didn't necessarily need it, but for demonstration's sake, I wanted to make sure we showed that off. And then we also have to be careful when we're in levels with a lot of verticality or jump pads, because if an enemy lands on your head, you'll take head stomp damage. The flip side to that that's beneficial is that you can do the same to enemies, but you have to be very careful because they'll take your health out very quickly doing that. And And another aspect of enemies I haven't talked about yet is random enemy spawns. So there's some preset spawns on the map that are going to be labeled as random enemies. The way that works is one of two things will happen. Either no enemies will spawn at all in that area, or it'll pick an enemy type that's already existing on the map and put one of them there instead. So there's a lot of adaptability you need to have in like on-the-fly decision-making you need to make based on what enemies spawn in those areas, so definitely creates a more dynamic speedrun experience, but also is kind of difficult if you don't know what to deal with in certain areas. So this level is one of those levels where what enemy spawns you get here can be kind of risky. If you get a lot of high guards, this level can become very dangerous very quickly, because you have to pass through a lot of enemies already, and if they're shooting at you, you'll lose a lot of health. But it looks like we got pretty good spawns. I didn't see any more, so that's good. Alright, yeah, that's really lucky. Just another aspect of, like, knowing what potential enemy spawns you could get and how to deal with it. We're gonna pick up our first rocket weapon here, which is the Flame Wall. The Flame Wall is the coolest weapon in the game, hands down, and is super broken. So it shoots a literal wall of fire that can instant kill any normal enemy. But unfortunately, as cool as this weapon is, we are only ever going to use it twice in the run. And one thing I haven't touched on is elevators. You see me quick save in front of an elevator every time I get in one, and that's because there is a 1 in 10 chance that you can get elevator music, which will arbitrarily lose you about 10 seconds. So it's pretty inconsequential to save and then reload if you get the elevator music, because it'll still be faster than sitting through the entire elevator ride. And there's going to be a couple levels where, you know, keeping that in mind is going to be very important, because you'll be on a timer for some things. Alright, I gotta be very careful there. So this is the boss level of Episode 1. This is General Darien. We have to hit these 4 switches in order for him to get out of this little box. And then once he opens the door, we need to immediately just unload a bunch of bazooka rounds into him. You want to kill him before he gets out, because otherwise he'll start teleporting, but yeah, very easy boss, because he doesn't have a lot of health. Now we're on to Episode 2. So Episode 2 introduces 2 new types of enemies to the equation. One of them is the Strike Patrol, which are relative pushovers. And then there's also the Triad Enforcers, which are one of the most dangerous enemies in the entire game. They are dangerous because they, 1, have a ton of health, 2, they have machine gun attacks, which is more automatic hit scan damage. And the most dangerous thing about them is that they can also throw grenades, and the grenades that they throw do a lot of damage. So this is now one other thing you have to keep in mind and keep an eye out for pretty much on every map, especially in areas where there are random enemy spawns, because you do not want one of them to spawn in one of those. Alright, so this is a very interesting level right here. The way it works is that you have to get 3 keys to get to the exit, and you can get those keys in any order you want. But what the level wants you to do is get the keys and then take elevators back to the central hub. But it's faster on every single key to just backtrack instead. But we pick up that key first because it gives us access to Mercury mode and a relatively easy asbestos armor. Mercury mode is just good for getting through this level fast, but the asbestos armor is also good for dealing with the number of fire traps we have to deal with on this map. So we've got all 3 keys and we can make our way back, and as you can see, Mercury mode is making flying through this level way more simple than it realistically is. Alright, and there's also pits on the floor here. That's another hazard we haven't really talked about because we haven't had to worry about it, but the way pits work is that there's this barely visible spot on the floor that you can land in that will make you take damage but also slow you down. The nice thing about Mercury mode is that if you have Mercury mode, you'll never fall into the pit. But you have to be careful because they're very easy to miss. Otherwise. This is the room. This is one of the most unique levels in Rise of the Triad because unlike every other level in the game, this one doesn't have any enemies. It's all about solving puzzles and dodging hazards. Which, those 2 rocket jumps we did are very big sequence breaks because they skip one of the puzzles and also skip one of the keys on this map. Rocket jumping is also a key part of this game, by the way. It was one of the first games to actually have rocket jumping, but the downside to it is that the rocket jumping, despite being kind of an intended mechanic, is also very finicky. and sometimes it will just outright not work, so you gotta be keeping that in mind. Alright, so spiraling in is a level where if you get bad enemy spawn RNG, it can get very scary very early on. Alright, I already got hit by one Triad Enforcer grenade, and I didn't take that much damage, which is nice, but if you get Triad Enforcers in certain areas on this map can become very scary very quickly. But now that we have bulletproof armor, we can deal with, not have to worry about enemies as much, and that rocket jump right there takes us pretty much to the end of the level. That's not good. So this is what happens if you get hit by a net, by the way. This is actually really lucky because, again, I have bulletproof armor, so I'm not taking any damage, but if you were wondering how long it takes to get out of nets, that's how long it takes. And now we're on to Rocky Plateau, which is one of the most daunting levels casually, not because it's like overly difficult, but just because it's a very big map, and it's very easy to get lost in. And what makes it more infuriating is that what you need to do on this map is really kind of only in one corner of the map. So there's all this empty space that literally leads to nothing. So this level, when I was routing the game way back in the day, was probably one of the ones that took me the longest just because I kept getting lost. But over the years, the route has become a lot more streamlined and easier to figure out. So what we're doing at the beginning of this level is hitting a bunch of switches to get that key. It's going to lead us to a maze that leads us to another key, which leads us to the exit. Now this maze coming up is another area where you have to be very mindful of potential enemy spawns, so I'm actually going to save in case I get unlucky. So far so good. For safety, I'm going to go ahead and take out that over patrol, just so I don't accidentally get netted. Alright. Pretty good, pretty average RNG. And while knowing like random spawns is also important, knowing where like certain enemies will always spawn that are going to be like key threats is also important. So like the Triad Enforcer protecting that key is always going to be there. So you always want to, you know, make sure that you are aware of that and you take him out so he doesn't kill you. So knowing where like enemies like that, for example, are important because you can always easily take them out and not have to worry about them. And that's nice because this level is just chock full of random enemy spawns, and sometimes you can get some really bad combinations. This has been pretty tame so far. But there are a lot of random enemy spawns on this map, so you have to be very careful. Alright, good RNG on this one too, which is nice. If you get a Triad Enforcer in that hallway, things can get pretty bad. And then we're going to do a rocket jump here that skips a good chunk at the beginning of the level. It also skips what is probably the most infuriating part of the level, so really convenient. Alright, so we're going to get this key to unlock the door that's right down the hallway. The rest of the level is pretty tame so far. It's pretty tame. This has been a pretty good level overall. I haven't been dealing with too many bad enemy spawns. But again, knowing what potential spawns you could deal with is a key skill for getting better at the game. And you're not going to figure that stuff out overnight. It takes a lot of replaying to figure that out. And even then, there's still some scenarios that, even if you think you're ready for, you can just get unlucky and it just kind of sucks, but it's just part of the game. I still love the game anyway. That's bad. Alright, so I took some damage there at the end, which is not great, but luckily we don't have to worry too much because there's going to be some health relatively quickly here. Or we can hope there's going to be health even sooner. I'll just grab these for now. Normally I wouldn't do that, but that damage I took at the end was unexpected. So this is the boss level of Episode 2. This is Sebastian Christ. What's interesting about this level is that, unlike the previous level, you kind of have like a full level you have to complete in order to get to the boss, rather than just him being right there. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong on this map, a lot of enemies, a lot of hazards. So we're going to actually go out of our way here to get this random power-up. And we got God Mode first try, which is great. So the way the random power-ups work is there's a cycle of different power-ups you can get from it. It's not strictly RNG-based, but it does feel very luck-based because it's cycle-based, and the cycling is so fast it kind of feels like luck. There's some degree of mitigation you can do if you don't get the power-up you need first, but as out of the way as this might seem, it makes this level substantially easier, because God Mode makes you invulnerable to any damage, and it also lets you shoot out those balls of magic, which will instantly kill any enemy in the game. But on average, like with a random power-up, it'll usually take like a couple seconds at most. Sometimes you can get unlucky, but you usually don't have to worry too much about it. But remember how I said it kills any enemy in one hit? It also includes the bosses. So the boss is now dead too, which is another great thing about having God mode for this level. Gets through the level easier, and also kills the boss instantly. The boss, Chris, isn't necessarily hard, but he's a little tankier than the other boss, so being able to kill him instantly is convenient. Now we're on to Episode 3. Episode 3 introduces robots, which are unique enemies because they can't take damage from anything other than rockets. And this level is one of the more stressful levels in the run if you're trying to go for a good time, because you more or less have to get to the end of the map by a specific point, otherwise you'll lose a little bit of time due to cycles. So we're hoping to get what I call the GOAT cycle, which is going through everything fast enough that you can get to the end of the level as quick as possible. But I'll explain that a little bit more as we get through the level. We're taking a shortcut here to get to the longest hallway ever, which is this right here. Doesn't seem that long here, but we'll be on the way back. We have to collect 2 different keys here to get to the other keys. Alrighty. And hopefully, if we make it back in time, we'll get the cycle that we need, but we again have to go through this incredibly long hallway. Alright, we're gonna save here so we can rocket jump over this trap, and hopefully we get the cycle that we need. It's kind of luck-based at the end, but alright, we just barely made it. And the reason I say luck-based is because the flame traps on the floor are a little bit random when they start being active, so you can't necessarily plan for those all the time. But yeah, we got the fastest cycle on that level, so that's good. Alright, so Down and Over is a level that has a lot of really messy stuff going on at the beginning, but the counter to that is that there's also a God mode power-up right off at the bat at the beginning. We're just going to make getting through this level very easy. And another benefit to God mode that's not inherently obvious is that you will never get elevator music when you have God mode. So you never have to worry about quick saving ahead of time. Yeah, God mode's pretty broken. We're gonna do a shot right here. Okay, cool. If we line that shot up correctly, it'll kill all the enemies, allow us to pick up the key, and then destroy the table the key's on to get to this area a little bit faster. Normally this level can be absolutely infuriating, but God mode makes this level kind of a joke. Just as you can see, there's a ton of different enemies to get around. Alright, so now we're on dead in 5 seconds. This is a lie. You can actually die in about 2 if you're not careful. Alright, so as you can see, we got robot guards. And again, you have to use rocket weapons on the robots. They won't be destroyed unless you use a rocket weapon. Most normal enemies, obviously, you can use either rockets or bullets, but they're an exception. This level's fairly short. There's a lot of dangerous things, but you can very easily get around them. Okay, a little patiently there. And the exit's already right here. There's a lot of robots, but we don't have to worry about that. So now we're going on to Clear and Present Danger. This is my favorite level in the entire run, because I think the route is really cool. Okay, so this is the only level we pick up a knife on because it's just very convenient, because as you can see, sometimes you can get really unlucky here. There's a potential for a lot of things to go wrong. And normally I would go for a little bit of a riskier strat, but just because my health is a little bit lower, I am going to play it a little bit safe. If you get good cycles with enemies and good spawns, you can actually get this key and beat that lava wall there, and it saves probably close to like 10 or 15 seconds. But again, with how much on-the-fly decision-making you have to make with this run, you sometimes have to make decisions that are slower in order to not completely throw the run. And that's what happened there. Considering everything else has gone pretty well, I'm not too worried about it. Got another dog mode here. This is going to make getting through the rest of the level very, very convenient. Dog mode, you can still get elevator music, but God mode is the only power-up that prevents that from happening. Take a little shortcut here. Now this level also has a potential problem with doors. It can happen on any map, but the way that sprites and like tiles are laid out on the map for Rise of the Triad, doors are basically considered similar to how wall tiles are. So if you get in the middle of a door and something like stops you in there, you can actually get stuck and you can't do anything until somebody else opens the door, which is very likely not going to happen. So you have to be very careful. And that door on that level on the way out is more or less one of the few doors where you really have to worry about not getting stuck. And so we're on Angry Quilt. Angry Quilt is another level that's not terribly hard, but it also has another random power-up instance. The nice thing about this is that there's 2 power-ups that you can use on the random power-up to get through this level quickly. You can either get through it with dog mode or god mode. Both of them are just as fast as the other and have different benefits. So we're gonna park ourselves here, and we got god mode first try, so that's convenient. The only major difference between using god mode and dog mode for this level is how you get around a certain trap that will save some time. But there is one elevator we have to ride, so having god mode is actually kind of convenient for this map because you don't have to worry about elevator music. And one of the reasons why we save is if I were to have dog mode here, or not have dog mode, well, more specifically for dog mode, that's on a timer, you don't have it the entire level. If you lose a bunch of time because of elevator music, you may not have it for a spot where it's convenient. Alrighty, and I also used the god ball to do a rocket jump there at the beginning. With dog mode you can jump over it, but with god mode, if you can do a slightly awkward setup, you can actually use the explosion from the god ball to basically act as a rocket jump. It's super nice. And you won't take any damage from it because you're in god mode. Alright, so now we got one of the worst sections for RNG coming up here at the end, which is the spin blade room. Okay, that's bad. Getting a Triad Enforcer there is terrible. Okay, I'm losing a lot of health. I gotta be a little bit careful at the beginning of this level now. So this is moving walls. As you can see, there's a lot of moving walls, and they're all gonna kill you if you're not careful. Alright, so the game's playing a little bit fair by not throwing a bunch of Triad Enforcers at the beginning, which is really nice, but they can still spawn here. And if they spawn in this room, then good luck dealing with that. So these are a bunch of raising gads. You can't just walk by or walk under them, unfortunately. They have some really weird properties with their collision that makes that room really kind of weird and awkward. So we're gonna restock our bazooka right here, grabbing a new one. And then we're gonna go through this hallway to get bulletproof armor, which is gonna be very helpful for this second half of the level. We also have to be careful of these robots because they shoot rockets. I haven't had a chance to really demonstrate that because I've been on my A game with them, but this next area is incredibly dangerous, and there's a lot of potential spawns that can happen here that are really bad. So I'm going to be quick saving a lot because I do not want to throw away the run because of something like that. The nice thing about the random spawns is that they are only random once the map's generated. If you save on the map, the spawns are going to stay the same. So if something does kill you, you can kind of plan around it next time if you do have to reload your save. Alright, I gotta be very careful because there's a lot of Triad Enforcers right there. Alright, this was a pretty good level, all things considered. And now we're going on to the worst boss fight in the entire game, which is Enemy. So, fun story about Enemy. Enemy is a notoriously difficult boss fight casually, and for speedrunning's sake, he's also not much easier. For the longest time, this boss fight was the one boss we could not come up with a strat for at all, until a few years ago when TVCR looked at the source code and got a better idea of how it works. So we kind of have a sort of strat that might work, so let's see if it actually happens. Alright, so we're using the firebomb there because it does the most amount of base damage per shot. I didn't get the AI set up correctly, but that's not a big deal. He's still not moving around. The problem with Enemy and why he's such a bad boss is because he does a lot of damage, he has a lot of health, and he's very fast, so not a particularly fun combo to deal with, and I got really lucky there, so not so lucky there. I gotta be a little bit careful. Yeah, if you don't get the perfect enemy boss fight right off the bat, it's kind of just worth it to play it safe and hopefully not get stuck in a corner with him like that. Alright, so that was not a great enemy boss fight, but we didn't die, and that's the most important part. That boss fight can be relentless if you don't get the perfect setup for it, but he's become a lot easier to deal with over time since we understand him a little bit better now. Alright, so now we're on to episode 4, which is the last episode of the game. This introduces monk enemies, those guys right there. And the regular death monks there are dangerous when they're close because they do AoE damage right next to you. There's also fire monks which shoot fireballs, which are far more dangerous, but both of these enemies are very tanky, so you're gonna get more mileage out of using rockets and stuff against them, or in the case of this level, God mode fireballs, because they will instant kill them. But as you can see, there's quite a few of them on this map, and you're gonna see quite a few of them from this point forward. So Fire and Brimstone, this is a very, very scary level if things do not go the way you want it to. At the beginning, it's not too bad because we're going to have dog mode. But this is interesting because this is one of the only maps in the game where you actually are required to use dog mode for progress. Because there is a key you need to get to make it further in the level, and you can only access it through dog mode with this little crevice here. But ideally, we want to get through as much of this level with dog mode as we can. And it's especially helpful going through this next section at the end of this hallway because there's a lot of moving walls of magma, and having dog mode's great because you don't have to worry about dying during that. Trying to do that without any sort of protection or power-ups is never going to work in your favor. Now we have to wait on this elevator. While we're doing that, I'm going to kill this enemy because there's a small chance that he might try to get on the elevator. And if an enemy's on the elevator, you can't use it. So coming up here, we're going to do a small little skip. We're going to rocket jump here to get a key. Get this health, and then we're going to rocket jump back. We're going to rocket jump back. Right here. And that does save quite a bit of time. Now we're getting into the end section. The end section can be a little bit scary depending on what enemies spawn. So we're going to play it a little bit safe by picking up some extra health and also picking up an extra bazooka. Okay, enemies' spawns weren't great there, but they were also manageable, so that's nice. And then we only move one of those pillars. We're supposed to move all of them, but by rocket jumping, after hitting the one that triggers at the very end of the level, you can skip doing that entire puzzle, and it makes that room so much faster. So this level is a level that's also, again, not too hard as long as you're careful. You have asbestos armor, which mitigates the threat of a lot of things throughout this, mainly the fireballs and the fire monks, but there's still things that can go wrong and enemies that can just get in your way. But conveniently, like I said, at least there's a lot of resources that help get through this level, like, somewhat efficiently, and a lot of health pickups that are really nice. But otherwise, it's a relatively short level. This is kind of bad. He was just kind of in the way. Right. So now we're on to Diamonds and Rust. This is another level that relies on the random enemy power-up. We're going to be a little cautious here because sometimes if you run too fast, the fire monks will shoot fireballs at you and kill you midair. I haven't had a chance to talk about some of these other power-ups, or power-downs is really a better word for them. So there's Rubber mode, or Elasto mode, which makes you bounce around uncontrollably, and it's very hard to play the game when you're doing that. There's also Shrooms mode, which makes your aim go completely off the rails and makes everything funny colors. They're both very bad, and you never want to get them in a run. Or even casually, you don't ever want to deal with that. But here we got God mode, which is good. The preferable power-up is Dog mode for this section, but God mode works just as fine. You just have to change your strats a little bit. But the nice thing about levels like this is instead of having to land on one specific power-up, you kind of have a coin flip scenario. Because there's 4 different power-ups on the random power-up, and instead of needing one of them, you can get one of 2 of them, so you have a 50-50 chance on it. So we're gonna do another jump here with the rocket jump with the God Ball right here. They can be a little bit awkward, like I said, but if you have a general understanding of how it works, it's not too bad. But I always save there because if I don't get that God Ball, I don't want to run out of time, so I can't do a jump over that. And since I love random power-ups so much, we're going to use another one right off the bat. Which, this one we need to get God Mode for, which we got first try, which is nice. This level originally, before we knew that there was a random power-up there, someone actually looked at the map and said, hey, this is here. This level used to be a lot worse and a lot slower, but with God Mode it makes getting through here so much faster and so much easier. Because you now never have to worry about the threat of the monks, and the ones that are in this hallway, you can't really avoid not killing them. So having a power-up that insta-kills them is super nice. Otherwise, you'd have a Dark Staff and the Machine Gun, which will kill some of them quickly, but the rest of them will take forever. And there's just a lot of hazards and stuff, so having God Mode here is super helpful. But as much as I love God Mode, there's one power-up I like more than God Mode. Right over here, which is Dog Mode. And we picked this up. It's not necessary, but it does help getting through the end of the level. Because you will run out of God Mode before you get to the end, more than likely. This is just another way to help survive the level a little bit easier. Alright, Circles of Fire. This is a relatively simple map, but there are some very difficult sections. So we have to go here to activate a move wall. We're also going to pick up a fresh Dark Staff. The Dark Staff is also a really good weapon. The way it works is it shoots a magic projectile that will actually kill multiple enemies in a row. So it's very helpful, but it's also got a slow startup. So you have to keep that in mind. And here we're going to be careful and set up to hit that switch and then move back, because this gives us access to Asbestos armor, which is going to make this level so much easier. Because without Asbestos armor, this level is kind of excruciating to get through. But the trick to that is that the space you have to move through is very narrow and you don't have a lot of time to do it, so I save there because I don't want to throw away the run on missing that. And now we're on Laravel Skirl, we're at the end game. So this is another boss level. It's not the final boss though, because we have one more boss level after this. And this is another level that has a full-on level attached to it before you get to the boss area. And this level has a couple sections that are very difficult, so we have to focus a little bit. Alright, so we gotta make sure we take out those fire monks for convenience sake. We got our key. We have to take this elevator because there's a locked door next to that key, but it's not the right key for that door. That one we have to take the key we just picked up to get over here. And we have to be a little bit careful because this section can be very dangerous. But we're going to try to go through it as quick as we can. We're going to pick up this key and hopefully not take damage. That's great. There's a couple fire monks throughout this area that can very easily hit you and make you not only take damage but lose a lot of time. So that went really well. So now we have to backtrack to the elevator, make our way back with the key that was required for the door next to the other key. It's a very common trope in rot level design. And make our way through this little dangerous hallway right here. Right, this is the last elevator in the game. And we are on our way to the boss arena. This is where we are going to encounter El Oscuro, the main villain of the game. This boss fight's really unique because... oh my god, he started right there. That's unexpected. So the way this boss works is that he doesn't take damage when you attack him. The way he works is that he will do a series of attacks that depletes his energy. And if you try to attack him, he will gain that energy back. So instead of actually like fighting a full-on boss, you actually have to wait him out. So it's a pretty unique concept. So we just have to, again, wait it out. And the only way we can slow this down is by attacking him more to give him more health back. This will usually take about a minute. I had a little bit of a rough start because his AI activated way faster than it normally does. But it's very important we keep a track of our asbestos armor, because his magic attacks will absolutely melt our health bar if we're not careful. And again, we just gotta wait. So after this, we're gonna have 2 more levels. One of them is just a chase sequence, and the other one is the actual final boss fight. And one other thing I'll mention right away, because it's gonna be very relevant for the actual final boss fight, is that when you have armor, you can't stack armor. The one flaw with Ludicrous Edition, in my opinion, is that in the normal game, you can't pick up armor when you already have armor equipped. But in this version, for some reason, it'll let you pick up an armor pickup, but it won't count as a new thing of armor. You'll still have the same countdown point on the previous armor, but it won't reflect that. So if you're not careful, you can very easily lose track of what your armor is supposed to be, and that can end very badly. And this level is notorious for having killed several runs of mine because that has happened. But this is a little chase sequence. You know, Alaskuro's turned into this weird multi-headed caterpillar. This is his true form. But we're chasing him to his actual lair. And that's where the final boss and final level is actually going to begin. And this has a really interesting gimmick to it. So this level has a bunch of these little egg things right here. These are Alaskuro's larvae. And if you don't kill all of them, you don't actually finish the game. The game wants you to kill all of these, but the problem is it doesn't tell you that unless you do it for the first time and fail to kill all of them. And while these ones are relatively straightforward because they're just right here, there's one section of them that is extremely well hidden, and if you don't know it's there, you're never going to find it. And these eggs are also annoying because their collision is very awkward, and sometimes you'll do things like that where you'll shoot at it and it will just pass right through them. But there's really nothing you can do about it if that happens, so... Looks like we got everything in here. Alright. I'm gonna grab this flame wall I picked up in the previous map. And I'm gonna double check just real quick to make sure that I have everything here. It's better for a no reset setting to make sure that that's the case. And I'm gonna grab one more asbestos armor. And we're going to fall off this edge carefully because we want to pick up Mercury mode. Because this is going to get us to an area that is very well hidden, as I said before. Alright, so there's the boss fight. We'll explain how he works here momentarily, but first we have to get to this push wall here to reveal the last section of Alaskuro's larva. And the firewall, while it seems really weird and out of the way to get in the previous level, it makes this section a lot faster than if you did it without it. I didn't get as many as I would like, but we're going to use the Excalibat, which is another really cool but kind of gimmicky weapon. It's going to shoot an arc of explosive baseballs, and hopefully we'll hit quite a few of these guys with it. Alright, so I'm going to be a little bit careful because my armor's starting to run low. So we're going to save here just in case. I want to make... Actually, I should make sure I got all of them. This works out for me. Alright. Yeah, we got them all. Oh, no, we missed one. It's a good thing I came back. Like I said, for a no reset marathon, or for a no reset scenario, we want to absolutely make sure we don't miss that. Now we're going to fight the boss. The way this works is he has to be over these little fire pits to take damage. And if we arc the explosive baseball shots just right, he will take a lot of damage. On average, it will take about 3 swipes to kill him, but... Okay, there we go. We got 4. 4 is not bad either. Now Alaskuro is dead, and we have to wait for his death cutscene to end for the time to go off. And then when the time is over, we have to make sure that we got the best ending. Otherwise, this run doesn't count. I say best ending, it's the true ending, because if you don't get the true ending, you will have to redo the level over again. Alrighty. And I did lose a little bit of time at the end, especially on the last level, but that was just because I wanted to make sure that I got all of the eggs, otherwise I'd have to do this whole level again, and we don't want to do that. Alright. And we got the credits, which means we got it, and there we go. The run is over. We beat it in 38 minutes and 58 seconds, which is a really good time for a no reset. That was even with some pretty bad RNG, so that's nice. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this run. Rot is a very special game to me because I have been routing and running it on and off since 2016, and Ludicrous Edition is like the best way to play this game, and it's the fastest the run's ever been. The run is more or less the exact same how it is as in DOS. The route's the same as DOS. This is just a more clean, quality of life filled, more complete version of the game, I guess. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if this is being submitted for a marathon, hopefully you guys consider it for whatever marathon it's submitted for. Thanks for watching, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of the runs that I put up on the future.